Established in 2010, Despicable Me has become the gold standard for a financially successful animated franchise. Its films have made on average $937 million, which puts this series behind only Avatar, Jurassic Park, and Avengers to become the fourth highest grossing per film franchise ever at the box office. And all of this is before we talk about the merchandise juggernaut that Minions has been, especially back in their prime. This is like no doubt the most financially successful franchise that I have ever covered and maybe will ever cover. So ahead of the new Minions movie coming out this year, I've decided it's time to just dive in to everything Despicable Me. And by everything, I mean the 6 films that are out at this point. This is Despicable Me, the ultimate retrospective. Despicable Me! So, I'm not gonna lie. This was the first sentence! What are you doing? I'm not gonna lie, I was so close to saying Despicable Me isn't as good as you remember. I do genuinely think that the first half of this film is just fine, like a 6 out of 10. It does everything it needs to. The pyramid's been stolen, Gru's a villain who wants to get his big break, being mainly someone who does petty crimes, and he uses his gadgets to deal with petty annoyances in life. He's very petty, he's also kind of a loser, but he has the setup of some major villain, including his scientist, Dr. Nefario, and the minions. They're not really relevant, I think, ever. Who ever heard of a minion? What's a minion doing on my salad? He encounters 3 girls, sends them away, and they go back to the orphanage. These girls are Margot, Edith, and Agnes. Gru has bigger plans to steal the moon, and then he pitches at the Bank of Evil, so it's just a bank. They didn't need to say of evil. Your bank. Bam. He's told he needs a shrink ray, which he plans to steal from other villain and certified Nepo baby Vector. So the plan is to adopt the orphans, because 3 little orphans, 1, 2, 3, and have them steal the shrink ray, but over the film, he grows to genuinely care about them. Yada yada, you know the rest. Okay, the real secret of Despicable Me is it's got a very competently made skeleton of a musie. It's got a competently made skeleton for a movie, and then it uses the skeleton to layer on jokes and Illumination's patented punch or relatability. You're probably gonna see this word come up a lot in this video, or you won't, but still, let me introduce this thesis now. Relatability is something that every film uses to some extent. If a character is relatable, you can connect with them and what they're going through. So therefore, writing-wise, you want your audience to connect to your characters. And so despite Gru being a villain and kind of a weirdo, he's the kind of guy who does what you're thinking but wouldn't do. Like, who wouldn't you want to freeze the line ahead of you so you can get your coffee sooner? Wouldn't you murder a carny's unfair game? Wouldn't you want to steal the moon? Okay, pause right there. That's also the angle. So, character development, bam. It's all about want and need. Gru ultimately wants attention because he never got it as a kid. We see his mother's pretty awful, but his need is to understand that the smaller connections that make a person's life make it better for them. Despicable Me is a film that's all about understanding that connection and love is achieved in the smallest of places, and mass notoriety isn't a substitute for that or happiness. And that's ultimately why Despicable Me works. It's got the solid bones of a story. You got a message, you got a drive, and it benefits that Despicable Me is consistently funny too, and it's fun. The girls have distinct enough personalities to make them stand out, but are way more memorable as a unit. Like, I don't hear people saying, my favorite of the girls is iCarly. No. Well, she's in there, but the girls, that's the way it works. That's the way this film series really only appreciates them. Going into this now, the girls consistently get less and less really to do past their unit as Gru's kids. They're more satellite characters than anything, which is why they don't matter, you know? The second movie, right? The oldest one, Margot, falls in love with a guy, but it's not about Margot falling in love with a boy. It's about Gru feeling weird that his kids fall in love with someone. Rinse and repeat. Also in this film is villain Vector, and he's just kind of great. Jason Segel does a good job. This man is a Muppet of a man, confirmed. This animation here is also Illumination's first film, but it's really solid. So being a 2010 film, no duh, it looks better than like Shrek or Ice Age, films that would have been in first or third grade when this one was born. I don't think some of the incidental humans look that good, but that's also just Illumination stylization, especially at this point. They kind of went for these weird and wonky looking humans. And even the main cast, right? Margot looks a little off throughout the whole film, like one of her eyes is perpetually sleepy. But the film's got bright colors and it's nice to look at. Yeah, I don't have too much to say about this, to be honest. Overall, Despicable Me is like a 7 out of 10, which you could franchise, or like not really. So the whole thing is when you want to make a franchise, it's never paid by one film. This is actually a pretty similar level to both what like Shrek had for its first film, and I'm pretty sure Older Me also gave Ice Age a 7 out of 10. Let me double check with him now. Hi, Older Phineas. What do you think I say as I consult my Letterboxd review? Older Phineas said it was a 6 out of 10, so you know what? Better than Ice Age. Despicable Me 2. So, okay, the reception to the first Despicable Me was solid all around. It made $543 million during the 2010 summer blockbuster season, and that's great on its own, but I think I should bring the real firepower here. This film was made on $69 million. Nice. So it made back like 8 times its budget as an original film in a year where other original films like Tangled and How to Train Your Dragon had budgets double the size of this one's. The film was acknowledged with a nomination for Best Animated Feature by the Golden Globes, not the Oscars. But in addition, it really put Illumination on the map, which would be continued with subsequent releases of Hop and The Lorax, both films being hot garbage, though I do have nostalgia for The Lorax as every human being does. I mean, how bad can that movie possibly be? In 2013, we'd officially get the sequel, Despicable Me 2. Despicable Me 2, Gru's recruited to this anti-villain league thing by Lucy Wilde on the behalf of like Silas Crumplebottom. He's just a British dude. Gru and Lucy have to go undercover in a mall to catch a villain and then have to find out which of the shopkeepers it's gonna be. Such a fun way to introduce more quirky characters. Guess how many they introduce? They introduce 2. That's it. The culprit is El Macho, the new villain, who's fine and a good character, but also Dr. Nefario, who quit working with Gru earlier in the film. Each of the characters get some separate stuff going on. Gru and Lucy have this romance plot that I'll touch on in a minute. The Minions have been kidnapped to an island that's, oops, all Minions. Margot falls in love with Antonio. Like I said before, this is not a Margot story. This is a dad protects daughter storyline. I hate those so much. Like, she is literally 11. Did we need this? Agnes wants a mom, and that's her entire thing aside from being cute, which, yeah, she is. There's a few gags that I like. I like Princess Gru, which might be weird to say. Oh, and then Edith gets nothing to do, a common trend for these films. Do I sound dead? I watched 4 of these in one day. Okay, so I guess the thing I do like here is that Lucy is a genuinely nice addition. I've not gone into the actors of these films. I probably should, because Miranda Cosgrove is here, Steve Carell is here. It's hard for me to be like, this actor in this really popular movie, you know who they are already. Why are you watching this video if you've not seen the films? Unless you want to learn more. And then welcome to the channel. So Lucy's played by Kristen Wiig, who's really great. She's a good counterbalance to Gru's vibes. And so, yeah, I'm biased with this. She's in the character archetypes that I really gravitate towards in like any piece of media. Good for Lucy. It's better than Ice Age's wife. Sorry, Ellie, you're fine. You're one of the better characters there. But this film did the plot better. At least the 2 here have some more cute moments, I guess. The whole problem for Despicable Me 2 is its story moves moves kind of weird because it's just very fast paced and doesn't really have much extra scenes that would matter in the main plot, but then also stuffs itself with stuff that just doesn't matter. It's kind of like a stuffed crust pizza. I'll stuff you all in the crust. Metaphor from the first film. They stuffed the minions as the crust, right? Like, you don't need that for the complete film, but I guess you thought it tasted better, so you did it. That's all this Minions content, all the stuff. Extra cheese. Sorry guys, some film critics don't like cheese. Also, we spend a bunch of time on this subplot where one of Gru's neighbors is obsessed with getting him a date. And I know him and Lucy have a hesitation, but like, can't we just get a date from them or something a little more? I like this whole subplot. I feels like the Illumination patented relatability. Don't you hate it when your neighbor's constantly trying to pair you up, single dads? I'm not a single dad. I don't know if that's a thing that happens to single dads, but I feel like some guy in the writer's room was like, ah, that girl. Bam, in my film. Yeah, this film really unmasks one of the franchise's biggest flaws, which is focus. Does this film want to be a mystery rom-com? Is Despicable Me a secret agent franchise? Who will Gru be tonight? That's the question. Also, another funny thing, this is a video of side rambles, as you can probably tell by now. So it's like, the comparison always goes to Megamind, right? And people are like, ah, both villain movies about a villain becoming good. No. So it's interesting, right? Because Despicable Me is in this whole like spy agents whole thing, right? That's the whole vibe of it. It's spy gadgets, and Megamind's a superhero film and a really great film that should never be compared to Despicable Me. But like, gosh darn it, guys, have you seen the two films? They are very different in their approaches. Megamind is like this masterpiece of like self-actualization and stuff, and Despicable Me is like, I'm depressed, I'm gonna adopt children from my depression. Like, you fool, what have you done? Animation and music are pretty great with this one. Animation's improved a lot overall. I think it looks better and more fun, and it's great. Did I just make a kissing sound? I did not mean to. It's great there. So the other whole thing, like, Illumination's films never look that bad. They're always bad for like story reasons. It's like putting a ton of frosting on a cake. It was nice to see. It was great visually. I just didn't bite into it too much. But also, this film's got a #1 single attached to it, which is Pharrell Williams' Happy. Great for Pharrell. Like, he was also in the first film. Super talented dude. And it's nice to see a film series build their identity around him because he's talented and I like his stuff. And Piece by Piece was really good. Overall, though, the second film's a step down from the first, and it shows that while Despicable Me has bones, it's going bad. So it's a 5 out of 10. What will Chris, Mel, and Audrey do tonight? That's the question. Minions. The answer is Minions. If this first Despicable Me did well, the second one did stellar. At the box office, it made $971 million on a budget of $76 million, making 12.5 times its budget back. Like, I don't know how they kept the budget so low. I mean, like, the writers we don't cost that much money, I think. The film, though, was also the third highest grossing film of the year, and it was nominated for not 1, but 2 Academy Awards. All of this is while Despicable Me 2 did critically on par with the first film. Like, Rotten Tomatoes, I think it's like an 80 versus a 75, which is barely a change on there on that website. But so, a year before Despicable Me 2 came out, Minions had been greenlit, and the film would get released in 2015. I'm gonna try to keep this so brief because, guys, I do not like this film. The film Minions peaks really early with this montage of the minions showing that they always serve the most evil person they can find. It's narrated like a National Geographic animal documentary and is just ultimately kind of fun. Unfortunately for the film, it quickly gets off the rails. The minions had been living in an ice cave many years, but 3 decide to venture out finally. They wind up going to Orlando for a villain con where they meet supervillain Scarlet Overkill, who takes them to London. She wants them to help her steal Queen Elizabeth II's crown. Do you guys think the Queen watched this film and saw minions try to steal her crown? That's a random thought I had at 5 p.m. Shenanigans happen. Scarlet turns on the minions. One of them nearly dies. Scarlet steals the crown as one like last Hail Mary. And then Child Gru is in London and steals it from Scarlet. The minions now worship Gru. Yeah, this film's really bad. Again, I just think this comes down to the minions not being compelling characters. They're cute, sure, I enjoy watching them sometimes, but why do I care about this quest from 3 minions that we don't know? Like, it's not like these were major characters in the first film. They were just the minions. They're part of a group entity. They do not have set personalities, except for this film trying to make them have set personalities. And it's like, dude, stop. What else with this entire thing that's so weird? This could be excused if the film was funny. No. Absolutely not funny. You think that this is an editing error? No, I am intentionally letting you have those seconds to think about your decisions. The villain family they encounter was fine, I think. Scarlet Overkill was like fine. The animation was good. It's just not that interesting. You're probably wondering why I'm taking Minions seriously. Because there's a good case that I should not have taken this film seriously. There's nothing about this film that wants to be taken seriously. I just think it's really funny that this is one of the highest grossing animated movies of all time. Out of what? You put shenanigans on a screen. I'm dying to see the kid who came home being like, I learned so much from the Minions movie, man. I learned the Minions weren't alive when Hitler was. The child would not actually say that. I'm going insane, I think. But there's probably some child who's like, what's a minion? What's evolution? And it's like, this film doesn't do evolution properly either, bud. The minions, they just sprout legs. That's their whole thing. The minions sprouted legs. Because they did. That is actually a thing that the minions did. It's good for them. Better than what I can do. I just have my 2 legs from birth. I can't get extra legs. Gosh darn it, minions. The thing that baffles me with this, right, is it's like some guy had to sit down and be like, gentlemen, I have presented for you the perfect script for minions. So our minions go for whoever's the most evil person at whatever time. And it's like, the whole ending, right, is Gru steals this crown. Let me just make this very clear. In the first film, I've never thought Gru was, like, good at villainy. Like, what's his accomplishment again? Like, oh, he's got a freeze ray. Nefario made it. Oh, he's got gadgets. Nefario made those. Oh, he hired Nefario. Okay. Good for him, I guess. You hired the man that made your gadgets with money from the bank from a loan? Like, this is such a stupid system. These films did no thinking of their world building, which is totally fine. You're Despicable Me. You're not a real movie. Well, you are the first film. I apologize, movie. But like, it's kind of baffling to me. I don't know why my brain's thinking about this so much. I've gone on such a ramble for this part. I swear to gosh, Despicable Me, of all films, has made me ramble like this, and I am without words. So yeah, nothing film doesn't do anything for the Despicable Me verse. I'm done. 3 out of 10. Minions goes down as a $1 billion movie, though it's the first time the franchise is met with a more mixed critical reception. The studio would release 2 original films, Sing and Secret Life of Pets, in 2016. But in 2017, it was time for Despicable Me 3. So Gru and Lucy are on the trail of Balthazar Brat, a child star from the 80s, who after he became a teen had his show canceled because he wasn't cute enough. But then also they fail at catching him, though they protect this diamond that he's trying to steal. So Gru and Lucy get kicked out of the Anti-Villain League by new management, and then they get an invite from Gru's secret twin brother, Drew. Drew wants Gru to teach him how to be a villain, so they do crimes of the Freedonian variety. It's a fictional country for this and other films. Balthazar Brat then steals the diamond, and oops, gotta stop him again, and stop him before he destroys Hollywood for canceling him. Dude, I don't say this often. I hate this movie, like, legit. I've been doing this Illumination-thon for a little bit now, and So I got through Hop feeling more nothing than anything. Everyone says that film was awful. It is, but Hop didn't do it for me in the mad way. This one's bad, really, really bad. So first of all, I want to address the absolute stupidity which underlines the main plot of this film. Why in the right mind did we give Gru a twin brother that was a secret this whole time? They didn't plan this out. Gru acts like the anti-Gru. He's nicer, he's more out there in a perky way, I guess, and he's super excited for his brother. Steve Carell, who I think I've mentioned, Gru's actor, must have had fun with the mannerisms of the Gru voice, but opposite personality, but it just feels like a nothing guy for nothing purposes. Like, sure, you can make new characters in your film, but you went with a secret twin brother who wants him to go back into villainy after the plot of the previous films was him quitting. Why? The main villain, I'd like to call once again fine, but it's Trey Parker playing Balthazar Bratt, this 80s villain. He's fine. Like, Trey Parker's a fine actor, but there's not much more in the writer's room than weren't the 80s quirky guys. Jokes on this film, most of your fan base, the kids, were born after 9/11. Is he for the grown-ups? Is he for the South Park fans? South Park fans who think Despicable Me is funny? Like, yeah, his mannerisms are quirky. He's worried about cancel culture in 2017, but like literal, because the show got canceled back in the 80s, and he wants revenge on Hollywood for canceling his show because as he aged, he looked worse. They canceled the whole show just because the actor got old. This is dumb. It's not even a fun villain origin story. It's just stupid because this entire franchise is about villains or super villains. You sure are out of ways to make interesting villains, huh? We go from Vector, who's a Nepo baby, to El Macho, who's pretty fine. He faked his own death. And then we go to Scarlet Overkill, worst villain in the olden days. Admittedly, some of Balthazar's gadgets are kind of fun, like bubblegum that expands. Okay, cool, quirky, good for you. Rubik's Cubes, I think, and then dancing. Buddy, it's a joke. It's a joke, you're telling me. It's a joke. This character's a joke. This character is an actual joke. I've said a lot of times because the character's a joke. Where's the funny? The 80s? A whole decade of time? It sure did happen. Guys, like... yeah. The Minions are also worse here than in their own film because the majority of them just quit when Gru gets fired because they want to do more villainy. They should have just waited. He's going to be a villain again later in the film. But then now there's this running subplot where the Minions go to some singing competition show, like violate TV. TV's a theme, I guess. But we needed another singing competition after our last film was Sing, huh? Really like that plot line. Really enjoyed making those storylines. Are you having fun? Lucy has a plot about trying to become a stricter mom. And so, okay, you got this character who's a devoted agent against villains, right? Kind of her whole thing made her interesting. She at least had a career. That's pretty good. That's progressive, dare I say, for a franchise like this. Of these animated film franchises, so many of the personalities are just bubbled down immediately. So no, this one's about her trying to be a better mom. You couldn't find her new purpose out of this. She's just sidelined to trying to support Margot's story, which we'll get to, and it does nothing. And it's like, why are you wasting Kristen Wiig? What's it with these animated sequels and their refusal to do anything with the proper main love interest past a marriage and children and the blah? They're always sidelined. I've done a few of these franchise retrospectives. It always happens. You just shove them into that boat. Stop doing it. In Shrek, Fiona goes through Shrek 2 and 3 like she only exists for Shrek, it feels like. Well, 2's better, but still. And then in Ice Age, like, Ellie loses her entire identity the moment she has a child, and Lucy just does not feel like she matters. She's just another one of the girls for Gru's life. Speaking of the girls, Margot was stuck in a plot where some Fredonian kid falls in love with her after some ritual involving cheese. Guys, what are we thinking?
That's a child!
The very last film had her in a stupid romance plot of Romeo and Juliet kind of thing with a main villain-ish, but also no, it was dumb, it was bad. She's not even a teenager. She's like 11 or 12. That's the vibes of the character. This is stupid. Agnes and Edith have a plot about Agnes wanting to find a unicorn because first movie, the unicorn's a big thing there. Edith serves as just the extra person of that because Edith gets nothing to do compared to her two sisters. Because, yeah, less is more, I guess. If you don't think this character has enough for something 3 films in to give her anything interesting aside from being the tomboyish one, you gotta reconsider. It's been 3 movies of your film franchise. This just, look, I don't get this mad at films normally. I don't think I'll ever get this mad in a video for a while, unless later on. I've not seen Rise of Gru in full yet, and I've not seen Despicable Me 4 yet for this video. Maybe I'll get worse. But yeah, it sucks. Nefario's stuck in Carbonite, by the way. That's the way they wanted to write around Russell Brand, which fair. I'd write around Russell Brand too, but he's back again in Rise of Gru for a bit, so no, you didn't want to get around your bad actor. Oopsies. So also Drew just matters so little to this franchise. And then there's the other thing, right? So the plot line for the parents is, so Gru's mom always hated him, but Drew's dad also did not like Drew, because the parents got a little oopsie, I guess, there. The dad admires Gru's villainous talent. Like, okay, sure, he stole the moon once, but that was like his one villainous deed. That was the one part of Gru's villain career. Everything else, he was a loser before. Stop! Like, Gru's not the center of this film's universe. Well, he is essentially, but everything just has to revolve around him being this super villain. He was just a villain in the universe. He did that once. This film just feels so nothing, but in a way that's so infuriating and technically just sparks my irritation in a way I wasn't expecting it to. Nothing matters to the sequels. I think it's just a film for the sake of making a film. Like, even Minions, cash grab as it was, had something of a purpose, establishing the origin for the Minions as a species. Sure, interesting, I guess, a little bit. I just genuinely see no reason why you'd ever want to watch this film except for liking its comedy. But the joke's on you, actually. This is wasted space, least funny film in this series yet. I just hate this film, man. The animation and music are fine, I guess, if that's what you're in for. Nice, pretty colors amongst your screen. But unless that is your purpose in life, unless that is all you come to a film for, no. This is bad. 2 out of 10. I never want to see this film again. Minions, The Rise of Gru. So I should tell you for the section that my voice died, and I think it's this movie's fault. So here we go. Despicable Me 3 is a $1 billion movie. It was the 4th highest grossing film of its year. It was also the 4th highest grossing animated film of all time, and was ultimately the kids' film of the 2017 summer box office season. But for the first time in main series history, it was a critical failure. Needless to say, the Illumination engine was revving, and pardoning COVID delays, Gru would return in Minions 2, or, as it's called, Minions Rise of Gru. If they wanted to be clever, just call it Despicable Pre, you know? Despicable Pre. Rise of Gru isn't really about the Minions. In fact, it's about Gru, but child Gru. The Gru who can't drink alcohol. Gru wants to join the X Games. Sorry, I have the plot for an extremely Groofy movie, not to be confused with an extremely Luffy movie, or the spoopy truthy movie. Child Gru wants to join the Vicious Six, the most famous villains in the world. He applies, they offer to interview him, he shows up, clearly a child, and they know he's a child, so they send him home, insulting him on the way out. Gru decides to steal their amulet thing that they stole at the start of the film, and then he gets kidnapped by Wild Knuckles, who is not a Sonic character, but a former member of the group who stole the amulet first and then got betrayed and kicked out in the intro for the crime of being old. So yes, the Vicious Six is ageist in 2 ways. Now it's up to the minions to save Gru. So let's start with the good. This is better than Minions and Despicable Me 3. Wild Knuckles is the first compelling addition to the franchise since Lucy. He first kidnaps Gru for the amulet, but when they work together, they create a nice bond where Gru gets the first adult in his life who actually works with him and not against him. Knuckles is played by the late Alan Arkin in what would be his final film performance. And there's a warmth here in his character. I like him. This is just also more tolerable than Minions or Despicable Me 3. The vision exists for this film, and it's the first time in 9 years that one of these films has an actual vision behind it. On the flip side, if I can say one thing this film does badly with, it's what it did to the franchise's world. So, if you don't mind me getting on my film major high horse, or my world builder high horse, or my high horse to end all high horses. Okay, that's stupid. Oh, when you construct a world for your films, it's always of a specific size. Some films take place in a galaxy far, far away. Some take place in a Mario galaxy far, far away. And others in just one school or town. But you want to essentially nurture the best world size for your story scope. And Despicable Me as a franchise started with a guy trying to steal the moon. So it's got a decently big story scope. But the problem starts to emerge with Minions, where by the lore set up in that film, Gru is technically the evilest villain at the end of stealing the Queen's crown. And then in Despicable Me 3, Balthazar's plan is to destroy Hollywood. But then Rise of Gru comes over here by being like, oops, everyone's connected to Gru as a child. Nefario, Anti-Villain League, Bank of Evil, Vector, they all existed here. Now Gru first encountered them when he was a child. They don't include Lucy or the girls in this, but that's more because the series doesn't care about them as characters over really any other factor. I don't think continuity matters here. This trope's just a pet peeve of mine in other shows too. The Simpsons, my beloved, is full of this. But fundamentally, for this franchise, it just makes me care less. I swear, I'm not trying to take Minions Rise of Gru too seriously, but I am taking Minions Rise of Gru seriously. It irks me. Aside from Wild Knuckles, there's not a single good addition to the bunch. The villains here are all one-off jokes, which makes sense. That's what the Minions are. But they could have, tried. I would go as far as to argue that what works here kind of makes me more sour because they could have been doing this the whole time. There's nothing more disappointing than seeing a project not care to use its potential, and that stings. Ultimately though, if none of my issues with this series are issues you care about, you're gonna be fine enjoying this film. There's more to like here than previous entries. It's like a 4 out of 10, but I'm being pretty generous because there's parts of here that are a step in the better direction, and I'm just upset that Rise of Gru is bad. Just bad film. They could have done so much better. They had seeds. Gosh darn it. They had seeds to success. This review is gonna murder my voice. Okay, on to the next one. Despicable Me 4. Okay, so Rise of Gru, solid reception. Did better critically than 3 and Minions, but financially it was weaker, but still well. It was the 5th highest grossing film of 2022, and it created the weird Gentle Minions phenomenon that was based on this film. Teenagers would be going to theaters in suits and throwing bananas. Choices were made, and a 4th mainline film was prepared to be released in 2024. So, funny thing about Despicable Me 4. I had just arrived in Chicago when it came out, a month or so after I went to see it. And this was the first film I decided to watch with my AMC A-lister, and needless to say, 2024 Phineas hated this film. That year I made a 2024 films ranked list, and it was in my bottom 5 alongside other stinkers like Megamind 2 and Dear Santa. So I was already dreading this rewatch and prepared for it to be the worst movie in the franchise. And to be completely honest, it may or may not be the worst because I kind of just hate this film as much as Despicable Me 3. Proceed for me losing my mind, okay? In Despicable Me 4, Gru is sent to his old school to take down his nemesis, who we've never met before, Maxime Lamal, who is a villain who's gotten him where he is by slowly turning himself into a cockroach. Gru catches him and is revealed that he has a son when he's home, because Gru gets out there. But then, oh no, Maxime Lamal broke out, and for some reason he knows Gru's family identity, and now they must go to witness protection. The rest of this film is just fragmented into 5 mini plots. Agnes and Edith are in a karate class. Lucy has to fake being a hairdresser. Gru wants to impress his new neighbor. Maxime is trying to hunt Gru. And the Anti-Villain League has decided to give minions superpowers to make them mega minions, all while the main plot becomes Gru teaming up with a literal child of his neighbors because she wants to become a villain like him and get into this villain school that he's in. So they steal the school's honey badger, and then the villain school's like, oops, you're gonna send yourself to Maxime, and then things collide, yada yada, climax. The film ends on the scene that is like simultaneously the only memorable part of the film and also pretty bad and unearned, where the entire franchise-wide cast sings Everybody Wants to Rule the World. This includes villains from all 5 other movies. This film ends. Awesome. Kill me. So I want to exemplify, just to start, one example of how this film fails at writing. How does Maxime find out where Gru lives? I mean, I know the answer is villain, duh. But the really simple decision that could have had everything explained is here. Okay, so these two are high school rivals, right? Nemesis since then that we've never heard about before. Have anything during this first scene escalate to Gru giving away that he has a family and is so lucky. It both propels Maxime to want revenge as the kid who peaked in high school, but also it gives Gru a fault that causes this, and Gru has to confront how he sees his own value. Because Gru goes this entire film wanting to impress his neighbors. This is in line with who he is, but the writers couldn't see the easy and best choice, or to be honest, they couldn't care to. Once again in this film, each of the girls in Gru's life gets shafted, when the reality is, there are so many ways they could have been fit into the main story. This new girl, Poppy, right, she's the new character, is a wannabe villainess, right, daughter of the neighbors, should have had her plot given to Edith. Edith isn't old enough, sure, but the film gave Gru a kid. They could have totally aged the cast up by like 2 to 3 years. Edith, who has a propensity towards violence, could finally get some attention instead of being shoved into a karate plotline so she can serve as Agnes's foil. But somehow, she's not the girl shafted the most. That's Margot. Margot's plotline is her getting bullied by this new town. Yep, that's it. She and Poppy are supposed to be around similar ages, and they don't interact at all. Great job, film. Lucy has to go undercover as a hairdresser, which she's not good at. Yeah, that makes sense. But it feels just filler. But nothing here is more filler than the dumbest piece of this pie, the Mega Minions. Before this film released, the filmmakers had Steve Carell go forward and talk about how they were going to be making a cinematic universe of Mega Minions films. It's an elaborate joke, not because the taglines are funny, but because I could have seen them easily doing these unironically. But the whole thing too is they're like trying to parody Marvel, right? But it's stupid. They wanted to parody superheroes when the whole shtick is Despicable Me are spy films and secret agent films more so, but not really great at that either. So the solution is to give 5 minions powers and let them do shenanigans. It's just so stupid. The entire plotline of this film is that the AVL decides that the minions are more competent at fighting villains than Grucy. So let's talk the villain, Maxime Lamal. I don't think he's a total wash. I think he's better than Balthazar for sure. It's a concept to give the villain personal history with Gru. None of the others really had that, aside from being villains, but he still is really gimmicky. The cockroach powers for sure. Wait, who plays this villain? What's Will Ferrell doing in a Despicable Me movie? The same year that a Megamind movie came out that he's not in. Will Ferrell, you sly dog. Maxime honestly falls flat on his face as a villain though, because he's just a non-presence. He and Gru only interact for the first scene and the last third, which isn't enough time, and is also true of Balthazar. But let's talk about the ending, okay? The way this film ends is Gru and Maxime putting aside their differences and singing Everybody Wants to Rule the World together in jail, alongside all of the major villains in the franchise and characters. All back, everyone who matters is here, but again, why? It's this callback problem. This entire thing is from this stupid high school beef, and it's just like, All these problems just coalesce into a movie that quite bluntly empties your head the moment you finish it. Despicable Me 3 got me angrier, but I remember it more. I couldn't tell you much more about how I felt in this film because it just feels like nothing. And to lay down the verdict, this is just worse by that extent. Like, I would rather feel angry from a film than feel nothing from it. And that's why this film's a 2 out of 10. I think my voice is finally a little better than it was. This is another, 4 days after my last recording session. So if it sounds better, leave a comment. Woo! Despicable Me 4 did about as well as the previous films. Financially, Illumination is likely in this for the long haul because they can't miss. I'm gonna expect and put a gamble that we're gonna get a 5th film in the main series in 2029. With Minions 4 in 2030. Wait, why are we getting Minions 4 and no Minions 3? Oh, we are getting Minions 3 this year. And it's a new standalone called Minions and Monsters, which is set in classic Hollywood and sees the Minions trying to make a monster movie. I'm interested to see how the series does away from the 80s, which has been the crutch for the past 3 movies to some extent. Now, you'd expect this to be the end of the discussion. It is. But to me, the most interesting piece of this Minion Dominion is how it dramatically changed how franchises were built in the 2010s. I think ultimately before, animated franchises were built on story and less so on mascots. Like, there was things like Scrap before, in Ice Age, but each of these other franchises felt really story-driven. The comic reliefs attempted to take over a few franchises, but nothing really came close to how the Minions took over and crafted this reign of domination. Now, I know there's probably some people who were born past the golden age of this franchise, but let's be very clear, in the 2010s, Minions were everywhere. Facebook, stores, Five Below, other stores. Why did I say Five Below so especially? For a while, the Illumination Minion DNA was just everywhere. And studios like Sony, DreamWorks, and more were just following their footsteps. And in 2018, Spider-Verse changed the game and turned Sony into arguably the industry leader. But for me, the thing that's interesting too is the behind-the-scenes story, which it's the heart of Chris Meledandri. I didn't talk much about him here because I wanted to try something different. But guys, this dude went from being one of the establishing voices in Blue Sky's state in the 2000s, and then pivoted to be one of the biggest forces to be reckoned with in the 2010s. He took exactly what he learned from Ice Age, one of the industry leaders in the 2000s, and improved and created this juggernaut. Because Despicable Me is here to stay. So, yeah, we're getting Ice Age 6. We got another Ice Age spin-off thing in 2022. These films aren't going to be relevant. The Ice Age films aren't relevant. The Despicable Me films, as bad as they are, continue to just do domination at the box office. And that's how they're a juggernaut. They took advantage of literally everything about the boom of online culture and rode it all the way to the top. And it built this establishment and was how in just 2 films, Minions took over the world, and why 4 mediocre films later, these guys aren't getting knocked down anytime soon, even as they might wane just a little bit. Hey guys, so sorry I'm so dead throughout this. I got a cold, and the cold was like, haha, what if you lost your voice? And I did. And then my brain was like, haha, what if you filmed with your voice lost? And I did. How's it going for me? Also, Tomodachi Life came out, which has been amazing. There's been a lot of fun games. I've been existing as a human. Yeah. Hopefully this video does well, and I can't wait to do another video with you guys soon in the future, so yeah. Oh, one more thing, if it wasn't mentioned before, I have a Patreon. I'm trying to plug this more, because I am starting to do previews for videos on there. Go join my Patreon for $1 a month. I am gonna be just giving you a bunch of extra content for my brain, and it's only $1 a month, so it's a third of a coffee a month. Well, more like a 6th because coffee's expensive now. But it's just $1. It goes a long way. Yeah, y'all are incredible. Take care. Bye.